Should you buy the F-4S, the new Rank 7 US Premium that is going to help you grind through the US tech tree and get your way into top tier jets? Stick around, I will give you my actual total summary at the end of the video. There's a couple things I want to talk about first. And of course, firstly, thank you patrons. You guys are a massive support to the channel. I really appreciate you. So again, thank you. First thing I want to cover with the F-4S is the fact that you have to take a gun pod if you want to have a gun on the plane. And let me tell you right now, you do want a gun on this plane. A lot of people, if there is a gun pod Phantom, since the beginning of time, you name it, the FGR, the FG Phantom, the F4J, and now the F4S, you have an option to run it without a gun pod, and it just doesn't really make any sense to run it without it. Here I am, caught with pretty much no missiles, barely any fuel left. It's 1 versus 2, there's MiG-29. I would be absolutely screwed had I not actually had a gun this match, and this happens a lot more often than you would think. Even if it wasn't this specific situation, you'll find yourself in a lot of situations where you really do want to have a gun. So why wouldn't you take a gun? Well, because you get quote-unquote better performance by not having it. It's extremely marginal, I'm telling you guys. I've done the testing. If you run the F-4S 20 minutes on the deck with the gun pod versus without it, you will accelerate from 500 kilometers an hour to Mach 1 a whole 3 seconds faster by not having the gun pod. Is that 3 seconds really worth losing out on all these different opportunities to defend yourself or get extra kills by having a gun? You be the judge. I'll let you make that decision for yourself. On top of that, the maneuverability aspect of the gun pod, of course, it's got more drag, it's got more weight. Well, that really doesn't translate into that big of a difference either. Your, I guess, speed loss to degrees turned ratio is not that much of a difference between having it and not having it, and it's certainly not going to be enough of a difference to make a difference as far as what you can do versus another enemy aircraft in some kind of a dogfight or something like that. Speaking of dogfights, you can't even fight anybody if you don't have a gun because you have no means of killing them at close range. And if they actually find their countermeasure keys, your missiles aren't going to be doing anything either. The last facet is of course top speed. If you're going quicker, your missiles could be coming off of the rail quicker and therefore just overall have better performance. But in reality, the gun pod Phantom tops out. I say tops out, it really just kind of stops accelerating around Mach 1.05 on the deck, and the Phantom without a gun pod starts to, or I should say stops accelerating around 1.1 Mach on the deck. That's a 0.05 Mach difference on the deck, and that's really not going to be a huge benefit to your missiles in any kind of way. I mean, look at me in this clip right here. I'm going 1.2 Mach right now at some altitude. That's plenty fast. Most planes kind of do that anyways. And as long as you're flying in a straight line for a while, your top speed difference, again, is going to be marginal with and without the gun pod. My missiles, of course, failing me right now, unfortunately, as I shoot at this seemingly AFK Phantom. I do what I can to kill him with my radar missiles, but between him dodging my first missile and my radar losing lock on the second missile, I am now really close range, and how am I going to kill him with a missile right now? Well, I'm not going to. I would have to extend away, I'd have to give him room to counterattack me, and instead I'm just going to stay in his face the whole time, cut throttle, use the slats that I have that he doesn't have, pull right in and get a nice clean gunshot. Again, this happens a lot more often than a lot of people give top tier credit for. You do need a gun still in War Thunder. Alright, I've finally pretty much pleaded my entire case for having a gun pod. If you still aren't going to use one, that's fine. I just think you're really missing out in exchange for basically gaining minimal return by not having it. Anyways, let's talk about the F-4S on a more broad spectrum. It's basically an F4J, if you guys know what the F4J is, but you get slats, maneuvering slats to help you turn better at lower speeds. And it is very noticeable when compared to other Phantoms. The Phantom in general is all around just one of the worst dogfighters at top tier these days, as far as just like maneuverability, energy retention, power to weight, that type of thing, but at least it's something. If you do manage to catch somebody off guard with the kind of AOA and speed bleed that you're going to get out of your slats, you might be able to turn inside of them for 1 or 2 turns. Again, another gunshot, by the way. And then you might actually get a kill by having the slats, whereas not having the slats, maybe you didn't pull in time to get the gunshot. There's a lot of variables as to will it matter, will it not matter. Overall, I think it's definitely worth having them for the extra pull in exchange for a little bit less energy retention. That's just me. And other than the maneuvering slats, it's basically still just an F4E in every other way except the gun pod. You still also have the F4E engines. The airframe weight without the gun pod is basically the same, if not the same, as the F4E. So if you've flown the F4E Phantom before, the F4EJ Phantom, the EJ Kai Phantom, it's going to feel very similar. Except of course the E is the only one of those that has the maneuvering slots like the F-4S does. You also get an HMD, which the usefulness of this HMD on this particular aircraft is debatable because the AIM-9H, well, it's not a bad missile. It might even be, no, it is AIM-9H's. It's not a bad missile, but it's definitely not one that's actually strong enough and pulls hard enough to actually utilize HMD that often. Every once in a while it's cool, but is it going to actually be giving you shots that you otherwise couldn't have? More often than not, no. But having HMD for radar slaving is sometimes pretty nice in itself. Using the ACM HMD kind of thing for your sparrows, very useful in close range situations where you have to be quick. Sometimes it's a little bit quicker and more reliable than fumbling with your radar keys. So again, not the most useful HMD out there, but it's always nice to have. AIM-7Fs, fantastic missile still, of course. The second best radar missile in the game, probably, considering it's the exact same thing as the 7M. I thought this one was kind of funny, just watching it fly in toward that MiG-29 from behind. It just tracks perfectly, it pulls perfectly, it just looks kind of cool. And he can't find his countermeasure key. I'm not in pulse Doppler mode. Had he just popped a couple of chaff, that probably wouldn't have hit him, but sometimes that just happens at top tier. He probably didn't even think it was a radar missile because usually people don't shoot those from the rear, but well, I'm not going to complain. It netted me a kill in the end. You see me here, this is kind of interesting. This happened to me like 2 or 3 times while playing the F-4S. Look at that first AIM-7F I've launched. Where is it going? Well, it's actually going for the target that is behind the one that I'd initially launched. This is possible, and it does make sense from a realism standpoint, except it doesn't, because my radar was pointed absolutely nowhere near that guy when the missile impacted. So how it is going off of that extra excess radiation that the radar in theory would be pointing that direction, it's just not possible. I think it's War Thunder's attempt at making something realistic be in the game in some form, but it's just kind of hilarious how fantasy that is. Basically, I just shot an AMRAAM at that guy and then continued to lock the same target and shoot a 7F at him as well. I don't think that one hit him, but still. You know what? I think it happens here too. Look at that 7F. Where is it going? It's going once again to the target way off to the right and absolutely nowhere near the guy that I have locked up right now. This should be possible technically if the targets were closer together. It would be riding off of the excess radiation, reflecting off of both of them, and maybe it would pick the wrong target. But in that situation, and in the situation before, that just shouldn't be possible. They're too spread apart. The radar should not be seeing that guy when I'm locked onto that target. But I don't know. The War Thunder's missile coding is a little bit sus sometimes, and that's just what happened. Kind of cool, I guess, kind of funny, but I don't think it's supposed to happen. The gist of this plane is pretty much you just fly around and shoot AIM-7Fs at people and hope that they just let the missile hit them. And that's a lot of top tier. Some planes are better at it than others. The F-4S at 11.3, I'd say it's pretty daggone good at it. And I would say that this plane, out of all the rank 7 premiums, is definitely on the upper end of the ones that I would actually see somebody buying. Now, I want to put a huge disclaimer here. I don't think any of the premiums in this game are single-handedly worth $70. That being said, if you just got your heart set on buying one, the two that I would actually recommend is the MLA and the F-4S as far as raw performance goes. Of course, if you're not interested in grinding the Russian or the US tech tree, then buying either one of those isn't going to really help you, is it? But as far as raw performance goes, these two aircraft at their battle ratings are actually pretty dang competitive. So should you buy it? No, but if you are going to buy a premium, yes, it is good for 11.3 BR, and I think you can definitely get a real top tier experience with this plane versus buying something like the A6 or the F5C, where if you really want to just get into top tier jets, they kind of give you that, but not really the full experience, where the F4S, this is pretty much what real top tier gameplay looks like. So in summary, this plane, not going to be the best dogfighter by any means, but it at least has the maneuvering slots to give it a little bit more of an edge compared to the other Phantoms. Of course, most of your kills are going to be with your Sparrows, like pretty much everything US at the moment, and you do get some decent backup in the form of AIM-9Hs and a pretty damn good gun, even for top tier standard. That's pretty much my summary of the F-4S. Hope you guys enjoyed, hope you found this helpful, and I'll see you again tomorrow with another new video.